Okay, in this section we're going to start discussing assault combat, which is when one of your units takes and actually moves into the hex of an enemy unit and they initiate hand-to-hand combat. Now they're going to pay their movement factor to move in, except if it's an infantry-only assault. When you're planning that assault, it takes a little bit to take and get all those men taking and moving together, so you have to pay one extra movement factor when you're accounting for assaulting an enemy unit. You can have a maximum of 2 units stacked together who enter an assault, which is a little different than how range combat is conducted, with it being conducted for each individual counter. So as an example, I have these 2 German infantry units located here, and they're going to assault into this hex with this Russian infantry located. Now what you'll do is you'll take and pay your movement costs, and you'll move the counters in there, and you will total up the amount of dice that the attacking units are going to throw. In this case, it would be 6 dice, 3 for each of the infantry units, and they'd be looking for 4s to hit. So you would perform their attack, and you would remember the amount of hits that they took and scored, and then you would roll also for the counterattack coming from the Russian units. In this case, their assault factor is a 2-4, so they'd roll 2 dice looking for 4s, and then you would resolve the hits simultaneously. One side does not go before the other. However, if the defending units are disrupted, so if our Russian units here were disrupted, when they were counterattacking, they would have to change their to hit number to a 6 instead. At this point, you would just take and resolve the hits for each side, attacker and defender. Now, when you're resolving your hits, the hits must be spread out as evenly as possible between the units involved. So let's say there were 2 hits scored from our Russian infantry into our German infantry here. They would each have to take one of the hits versus one of the infantry eating both of them. You resolve them as evenly as possible, and if you have any remainders, just roll a dice and determine randomly which unit gets affected. Now, if some units survive the combat, you're going to have to take and have a retreat involved. It's not going to matter if the defender is eliminated. If they're eliminated completely, the attackers will just remain in the hex where they attacked. But if they were not eliminated, the side that suffers the most hits is going to be the side that has to retreat from the combat. If it's equal to, then the attackers will also retreat in that circumstance. The attackers will always retreat to the hex that they started their attack from. The defenders can have a choice between the 3 opposite hexes, and they're going to retreat up to their movement factor away with some conditions. It can't be into an enemy occupied hex. It can't be adjacent to an enemy unit except for the one that initiated the combat. It can't violate stacking limits, and it can't be an impassable hex, obviously. Do remember that HQs can take and help with an assault as well. If there were an assault with an HQ involved, the HQ would add its leadership factor to the assault factor of one of the attacking units, not both. And if any hits were incurred by, say, these German units, then the HQ would have to roll for potential reduction. A couple other things to keep in mind. If the unit has a asterisk by its assault factor, then it means it can only defend, not actually initiate an assault combat. And if it doesn't have an assault factor at all, then it means it can't attack or defend. It can only just eat the hits that it receives in an assault combat. Also, infantry do get bonuses against armored fighting vehicles if they are fighting nothing but an armored fighting vehicle. So a unit that has the armor factor in their upper right. If our German infantry were instead to assault this Su-152, they would reduce their to hit number by 1. Also, if the Su-152 were located in a city hex and they were to assault them in the city, they would reduce their to hit number by 1 and increase their assault firepower by 1. But do keep in mind, neither of those bonuses are going to apply if the attacking infantry are disrupted.